Veritas family. Thank you so much for joining us here at Give and Take. I'm Sherry Davis, and I am here joined today by Adam Longo. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, Sherry, thanks for having me. Glad to be here on Give and Take here this noontime.
Yes, we're excited to have you. If you are watching live or in replay, be sure to tell us where you're watching from. We would love to know that. Adam, we're going to dive right in. I feel like we're going to have a really fast-paced 30 minutes here. So we're going to start out by telling us, what is your Veritas origin story? How did you come connected with Veritas?
Well, 3 years ago, this past August, the Lord called us from a pastorate. We'd been pastoring in Arkansas at the White Drive Baptist Church for 15 years. And Pastor Skelly asked my wife and I if we would pray about moving here. So knew of Veritas prior to that as a pastor, but not really engaged and involved. So we moved here. I joined the pastoral team. My wife's our preschool director, as you know. And then one night, late at the office, Pastor Skelly and I were the only two in the office, probably about 7 o'clock on a night. He came down, just sat in my office and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about just advancing your education?" And I said, "Sure, I have. And just sometimes, life and ministry and all those kind of things." And he said, "Well, I want you to go to breakfast with me and Mike Lester." And so we went to Cracker Barrel the next day and we talked about it. And that was probably about, I got here in August. That was probably about November, maybe late October, somewhere in there. And in January, I enrolled. And so
Okay.
here I have been over the last 2.5 years with Veritas, and I'm continuing still on a path to finish up a master's, get a doctorate, and just keep really lifelong learner,
Yeah, you
with
got you've got
Veritas.
big goals on the
Yeah,
horizon here, huh?
yeah, yeah,
That's exciting.
absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your ministry there at Faith.
So when I came at Faith, I came by faith, and so my wife's roles were defined because of the preschool need. But Pastor and I have known each other for over 30 years, and I'm one of those that I prayed about it, had peace from the Lord, and I just came. And so we moved our family, which at that time our youngest son was a senior in high school, so he enrolled at Faith Baptist Schools and then graduated from the school that at the end of that year. But I just came and jumped in. And so I now am, my title hardly matters, but I'm our connections pastor. So that helps just anybody that comes to the church or we meet, inviting to church or when to the Lord, what is their next step of faith, whether it be salvation, baptism, membership. I'm getting involved in groups and teams and again, connecting to people. So I
Yeah.
kind of like to say I'm the hub of a wheel, and there's a lot
Mhm.
of spokes attached to it.
Yeah.
And it's my job, like this morning already, I probably had 15 people at least from just yesterday to really meet and figure out how to have appointments with them and then run them out the spokes into
Mm.
different areas of our ministry. So that's one element with connections. We use the word assimilation
Mhm.
often, and how are we assimilating people into the church, into the Christian life. So that's a really big rock in my role there with
Yeah,
that.
I like that. And I feel like, well, so we got Dr. Wagner on in Winston-Salem. We've got Dr. Forrester on here in Spotsylvania. We've got Leo Michi. Oh, I'm going to say it right. Miskia. Did I get it right, Leo? You tell me, okay? Hello from Romania, he says. So
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining us today. I feel like I have a similar role here at Veritas in connecting, right? So finding different strategies to connect in an online environment. And so yours takes on a little bit different um, method, as
Sure.
folks are coming to church and finding ways to connect with them. But I love that. I love that we have a similar kindred spirit in that
Yeah.
loving to connect with people.
It's a multitask role too. I attribute it to, like, in a baseball team, you have a utility player, and maybe that guy can bat left-handed and right-handed. He can play infield or outfield. And then he can give it up to somebody else, and that's part of ministry, right?
Sure.
It's really developing others. It's how we permanently
Mhm.
succeed. So
Mhm.
God's doing some amazing things at Faith. we're scrambling to steward all the people that God is sending us. Um, we started a brand new young adults group last night, had 28 after I came out of a meeting today with those people, and 28 in that
Awesome.
meeting, and that's brand new from scratch. So
Oh,
just a
fun.
lot of things. I think I saw 60 in just Susan and I's small group yesterday. It's not so small.
Yeah.
It's getting larger, but that's a blessing. And so many other areas that are really growing at Faith Baptist Church.
Yeah, I know. And I work in the second grade Sparkies, and there literally aren't even enough chairs in our room. So we have to
Yeah.
go siphon chairs from other rooms so that we can
Yes.
squeeze them all in. And we're
Yeah.
excited. We're excited for the growth for sure.
And I just wrote down in my mind that second grade Sparkies needs chairs. So
Yep.
that's another part of the administrative part of my nondescript role.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
We got Dan Riley from Florida watching. Dr. Wagner says, "What did he just say about rock and roll?" Okay, don't heckle. Don't heckle us while we're live here, Dr.
Uh,
Wagner. Cameron
hey,
Cloud
us
in North
dad
Carolina.
joke guys, we have to stick together, Dr. Wagner.
Oh, that's fun. Yes, growing, lots of growth at Faith, and we are so excited for that. We got a new crop of second graders, as the Awana just picked back up, and it's really exciting to get to know them, get to know their parents, get to know their situations, and we're thrilled to be able to steward those young people at that age. And that's just one small portion of what's going on at Faith. So I know there are many ministries that are doing the exact same thing, and we're thrilled to hear about that.
Sherry, on the counterpart to those children is we are working to minister to their moms and dads. So,
It's
like
good.
we just started last Wednesday, a marriage workshop seminar that Susan and I are teaching. And we're really taking Gary Chapman's book on the heart of the five love languages, but really breaking it down a personal way. It was fun. We took a test last week,
Those
helping
are
people
fun.
identify, and they're working together. And we
Yep.
had 40 adults in there, many of them new, and it's just getting started. So,
That's good.
uh,
That's really
yeah,
good. If you're watching here and you've taken the love language test, put in the comments what your love language is. I'm curious to see what everybody pops in. If you're not familiar with the book, and maybe you haven't heard of it, go get it. Go right now, order it, get the book, Five Love Languages. It is super helpful for your relationships with anybody.
yeah,
It's not just for marriage. It will help you in relationships with others, co-workers. It actually really helped me with relationships with children. I read the children one, and it was very eye-opening as a young person getting working in I think it was children's church at the time, probably 20 some years ago. And oh, that's why this kid does this. Oh, that's
yeah,
why this behavior issue is here. That's why. And it was super enlightening. So
yeah.
if you don't already have that, if you haven't ever read that, go read it, go assess yourself, and then tell us find a way to tell us what you come up with. Keon is watching from Kansas City. Anne Marie is watching from Kentucky. We've got Philip watching from Uganda. Hey, Philip, thanks for popping in. Dr. Wagner says words and physical touch. Yes, very important. Words of affirmation is a super high one for lots of people. What did you rate, Adam? What did you put for your
Words
physical?
of affirmation and quality time.
Yeah.
In 34 years of marriage, Susan and I have found that our love languages have adapted through
Yes.
the years. So, what was important to us in the first part of marriage is not today as much.
Yep.
And so, it's not that we don't like gifts,
Sure.
but it just didn't matter as much. And
Yep.
but those things ebb and flow. Even with our
And I'll
teenagers, we
especially
found.
tell young ladies this because, especially during the time of younger children at home, acts of service begins to rise very high on the list.
Yes.
Anytime somebody will, take initiative, especially with housework or handling something with young children, just know that over time that those kinds of things ebb and flow, exactly like you said.
Yeah, yeah. I would say even now we're now empty nesters. Our youngest child is a junior in college, and my wife would now like acts of service to come from me, like dinner and dishes and that kind of thing. So
Right.
now I'm on the spot. I just let the world know
Yeah,
that.
that's right. Now you have accountability. We all heard you
Yes,
say it. We all
yeah,
heard you say it. Susan, he said it. You
I
you
did.
can play it back.
I'm gonna make dinner tonight.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Michael Raker is watching from West Alexandria, Ohio. Thanks for popping in, Michael. Yeah, so if you're watching this, tell us where you're watching from. Also, we were just discussing the five love languages. If you have read that and assessed that, tell us what your love language is. We'd love to see if we connect there. Dr. Wagner says intentionality and forgiveness are two more to add. Those are very good and
Yeah,
very, very good additions there. Should be really highlighted in each of the love languages.
love that.
So you are you started this marriage workshop. Is that through a group or is it at the church, or tell us more about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so that is in our Wednesday night group settings. There are multiple groups that are offered, across the platform. So, for instance, John Edmonds is teaching a group, and he is actually going through the life of Solomon, and he's entitled it, "Walking in Wisdom: Life Lessons from the Life of Solomon." And he started last week. It's great. Of course, as we know, John is just a teacher extraordinaire, and he's
Right.
such a blessing there. Obviously, his wife is too, and she's been doing some stuff with our young moms on Sunday throughout the summer. Um, but then there's others that are offered during that Awana time and then during our youth elevate time on a
Mm.
Wednesday night. Except for the times like our missions conference is coming up. So then that will our focus is all on the missions conference and which is a week from this Wednesday. So
Yes, exciting. We're all gearing up for that. Lots of details fall into place before that happens. Dr. Forrester says words and touch. Shirley says acts of service. Yes,
uh,
perfect. Those are I think, like you said, each one of us resonate with a couple, and then two kind of rise to the top.
right.
And I think I'd be like you, Adam. Am, I've never been one for gifts necessarily.
Mhm.
Um, I much more quality time or words of affirmation. Really, really all of them.
Right.
I can be reached in a lot of different ways, which is nice. So
Well, and Chapman references that. He says you have a primary, you may have two primary, but that doesn't mean you ignore the rest of them. I mean, it was interesting. We did the test Wednesday,
uh-huh.
and we had a lady, and I've done this for years with other couples and in marriage seminars and things. And we had a lady, she scored what was on the test a 12, which is the highest number you can score. And it was in acts of service. But she's a mom who is
Yeah.
at home with a bunch of kids at this
Yep.
season of her life.
Yep.
And so for her, that's what meant the world to her more than anything else. And then
Exactly.
the love languages have dialects, and we joke
Hmm.
about that. If you're from Texas, you got a twang,
Yeah.
you're from the South, if you're from the North, whatever. But the
Mhm.
reality is there are some dialects to discover about your kids, about your
Yes, sure.
spouse, about your boss, you know, and
That's right.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Forrester says he highly recommends Dr. Edmonds' group on Wednesday evening. So it's a
Fantastic.
plug for Dr. Edmonds on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
had a friend
fantastic.
in college who was very, very touchy, hanging all over and all of this. And I at one point was like, okay, I'm just gonna need some space. And she's like, oh, so sorry, physical touch is my love language. And I was like, yes, but it isn't mine.
Right, right.
Which is the whole point, right? The whole point
Exactly.
is to learn the other person's language,
It is. Yeah. It's the husband that comes home and he thinks that gifts is his wife's, favorite
Right.
language, and he spends unbelievable amount of money on roses and gifts and flowers and chocolate and whatever else,
Yeah.
and she's stressing about the bills.
Yes.
And she
Or
keeps,
wants to sit and have a conversation with him,
yeah,
like let's just spend time together. Yeah.
why did you spend all that money
Yes.
when we needed to, so that really wasn't her language. But
Yes.
maybe it was his, and so he wanted to receive it. So we often give what we
Hmm.
want to receive. And so
Yeah, that's good. That's
yeah.
really good. That sounds like a fascinating class. Adam, I'm going to have you move into tell us about what you have prepared for the students. So, what book or tip or resource do you recommend for our community here today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually at my home library right now and in my home office, just simply because sometimes at church there can be a lot of interruptions, and it's good. It's just what it is.
Sure.
So I snuck home real quick in between some appointments today, and so I'm sitting amongst a library that you cannot see, and there's plenty
Mhm.
more. So it's sometimes hard to narrow down, but I'll give a few thoughts. I think with some books or resources or whatever. I put some thoughts like this. Faithfulness is always greater than giftedness. So,
Mm,
God can use someone who maybe not be as gifted as another individual,
mm.
but is faithful.
Yeah.
And so, we know the Bible tells us that it's required of stewards that we be found faithful. And so I have found in 30 plus years of ministry now and in life as, been saved 47 years. Um, God puts a lot of emphasis on faithfulness. And the guy, the lady that's got great talent but is inconsistent,
Mm,
God's just looking for somebody to be consistent. So I think that encourages me. I'm a pretty simple guy
yeah.
in life, committed. My dad taught me, he's in heaven now, but my dad taught me to just work hard, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, be faithful at it, and be faithful in every area of your life, and God will bless faithfulness. And so that would be one thing that I would maybe encourage even our students with is just stay at it
Yeah.
and let the Lord take care of the rest. A couple books to maybe go along with that. A famous book that many of us know is J. Oswald Sanders' book, Spiritual Leadership. It reminds us that leadership flows out of character and dependence upon Christ. And so that reminds us that, hey, have character, be disciplined, stay with the stuff. There's another book by the same title, Spiritual Leadership, but it's by Blackaby and Henry Blackaby. And it's another rich resource that really, I think, complements Sanders' book in this way. It shows us that God develops and he guides and he empowers us as spiritual leaders. So it really speaks to our hearts. And I always try to look at that, what is God doing in my heart? What is God, helping me with my head? And what is he practically giving me for my hands to
Mm.
apply in ministry and in life and in practice in a practical way. So
If
that
somebody
book,
watching would put the link to those two books there, that would be a super help. Anne Marie, going back to our last conversation, said her love language is acts of gifts and quality time. But I love that you brought those thoughts up because it reminds me of Moses. He talks about how can I go and do this big thing? I can't deliver these people. I'm not the skilled orator. He talks about his own deficiencies. And I'm thrilled. I'm so thankful that God uses the people who have just they're regular old people. Because otherwise,
right,
do we ever stand a chance? How could
right,
we ever have a part in God's huge plan if he didn't use regular Joes,
right, right. Absolutely. And we see that all throughout the Word of God. And it's the foolish things that confound the wise. It's the simple, and it's not the mighty and the strong. And so God shows up in just the small ways in our life, and that's how He gets the glory.
That's
You know, I,
right.
I met with our interns this morning, and I meet with them on Mondays and Fridays in a little mentoring and leadership element, and
Mhm.
a little book that we're going through. We're going through a couple books, but one of those on Mondays is about humility.
Mm.
And one of the young men brought up the dependence that when we have a humble spirit, it causes us to rely on God. We're
Mm.
dependent upon Him, and that's right where God wants us to be. The
Yeah.
contrary to that was pride. And
Mhm.
we get so full of ourselves thinking that we don't need God and God has to remind us. And
Mhm.
so it was rich. They're teaching me and
That's good.
they're
That'll
teaching
preach,
me,
right?
but
That's
it
good.
was really, really good stuff today. Yeah.
So
Um,
you've given us your leadership quotes, unless you had another one.
Well, the guru of leadership, I think, would be, John Maxwell, that many of us would refer to. He said the true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more,
Mm.
nothing less. I believe that was in his book on the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Um, for many, many years, we served out in San Diego. He was transitioning there in Lemon Grove, California, from his church to what he started with Enjoy and his organizations in those early years. And he's just got some rich leadership things that can help us. It just challenged me to remember that leadership is not about position. It's not about title. you know
Yeah.
what do you do? Well, this is what I do, or I'm the authority.
Yes.
Leadership is about service.
That's
It's
right.
about and it's not about programs and processes, it's about people.
Yeah.
And so that was a good quote that reminded me of that.
It's such
I
a
know
it's a
another
it's a
book
really
out there that it's not new, and it's a little booklet, really, in my opinion, but called The Trellis and the Vine. And that
Hmm.
is a book by Colin Marshall and Tony Payne. And it really helps us understand leadership from a discipleship making process, not a pragmatic program process. And so, ministry is about people. And sometimes we can get so focused on programs. I joke a little bit about, we get so busy because there's so much to do in primping up property and propping up programs that we forget about people. So there's all the P's, and I just spit all over my computer. But
It's fine.
but
You can clean it later.
yeah, you clean it later. But it's so we can get so narrowed in our focus and forget, hey, what it's about is this person that's hurting right now, this
Yeah.
person that has a prayer need, this
Yep.
person that's going through a hardship with their marriage, their family.
Yep.
My oldest son sent me a text yesterday about he's in Oklahoma. He went to the altar and at the invitation time, just to himself to pray. And in his text, he said, the next thing I know, I felt the hands of the assistant pastor.
Oh,
He goes, and then another minute later, I felt more hands. He goes, I don't know how many people, Dad, but 10, 11, 12 people hovered around to just pray with me. He
yeah.
said, that's what I love about the church.
Yeah.
And that spoke volumes to me, to just be
Yeah.
reminded that people are what ministry's all. It's why we're training. It's why we have
Right.
Veritas. It's
That's right.
about people in the gospel. So
That's
the,
right.
the trellis and the vine will really hit your heart on what that's about. We need the trellis, you know, and we need the vine. We need the practical. And but let's not forget what we're doing and why we're doing it, you know.
Yeah, that's good. That'll preach right there. We'll just full
Yeah.
stop right there. That's awesome. Thank you so much for bringing that. Do you have a specific leadership moment in mind that comes to mind when you think about leadership?
But there is a lot there. I grew up as a pastor's son. I wasn't born into it. My dad was saved in 1975, and he went off to a college. I mean, my dad was saved out of drugs and alcohol.
Hmm.
I was born in 1970, so you can do the math. And he went off to a college that was called Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College. It doesn't exist there in San Dimas, California anymore.
Okay.
Men like Jack Baskin and Ted Hicks were instrumental in all of that. But anyway, it now would be another college in another part of the country. Um, so I grew up in that, and I remember years went by. My dad disabled. We moved them to where I was pastoring in Arkansas. And I got done preaching one day, and of course he's a seasoned pastor, and sometimes you lean on your dad. What do you think, and that kind of stuff. And we had a great relationship. He's in heaven today. But he said, and I wrote it down just so I would remember it. He said, Adam, we don't need your preaching as much as we need your presence.
Mm,
And my dad had this ability to just put the jelly on the bottom shelf and
yeah.
just kind of get right to it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that moment again reminded me that leadership was not about the platforms of influence that God was giving me in my life,
Mm,
but that rather leadership was about being engaged in everyday people's lives,
that's right.
whoever they may be. And so
Right.
he also reminded me that if I would quit preaching at noon, the church would grow. And our church started at 11, and he's like, be done at noon. And I promise you the church will grow. And he was right.
And
So
he was right.
that
That's
was a life lesson to learn too,
yeah.
land the plane, Pastor, land the plane. So
I wonder if you're the same. Tell me about this. When somebody offers you an opportunity to jump into ministry, another ministry, um, you have to weigh the cost of what it looks like to actually shepherd that group of people that you're going to be influencing, because
yeah,
it's not just the thing that you're doing that hour at church.
yes,
It is the outgrowth of that. It's the texting and loving on and checking in and how is this and how is this, and when someone approaches you about another ministry to add onto your plate, it's there's only so much time in the day and there's only so much you can do. And I know that weighs heavily for me when someone will ask if I can do something, because for me, I don't know how to do the surface level. I don't know how to just show up
Yeah.
the hour and then leave. It is the outpouring, it is the nurturing that happens behind the scenes that is so time consuming. And tell me about that for you.
So if you're asking if I have the ability as a former senior pastor now joining a multi-pastor team, if I have the ability to say no, I struggle with that.
Sure. Sure.
I raise my hand and say yes a lot. Um, prior to pastoring, I was the executive associate pastor for a ministry in Indianapolis, many, many years ago. So there was a lot of roles there that are very similar to my roles now, just at an older age and with senior pastor experience. So I understand where the seat is with the pastor, but yeah, I would say I'm all in to a fault at
Mm,
times. But you hit the right word. The word is shepherding.
yeah.
And that's what we really need to embrace as leaders, is that we're not called to order people around. We're called to care.
Yeah.
And the great statement we most people haven't heard so often, but people care. They want to know how much you care before they care how much you know.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, I just think that matters when you do send a text, when you do
Yeah.
make that visit over at the hospital.
Yeah.
We had the privilege the other day, Pastor Skelly, myself, and Pastor Josh. We were able to anoint a man with oil and pray over him, and his wife had asked us to come. And what a sweet time! It is those moments that matter in somebody's life more than the sermon I preached on Sunday,
Sure.
more than the group I led on
Yep.
Wednesday.
Yep.
It was those moments of touching their life, and that's the shepherding,
Yep.
the caring for them as under shepherds.
Yeah, that's good. Boy, that's good. That's good stuff. I could listen to this stuff all day. This makes me tick. This is good. Alyssa Sultanic is watching from Virginia over her kids' lunch. Hey, what'd you fix, Alyssa? What do we got for lunch over there? What are you bringing us? Anne Marie and Dr. Wagner have popped in as you were mentioning these books. They put in
The
the
link.
links there so that folks can get over there and do that. Um, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Boy, tell the community a little bit. I'm going to let you kind of do the call to action here because I think you have a unique perspective. Um, Talk to the student, the prospective student who might be watching, who's on the fence.
Mhm.
They're worried about time, worried about finances, worried about can they squeeze classes in with ministry. Talk to the student for us.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are multiple students in their situations. And we've had some jump on today that I know they're on the other side of the world.
Hmm.
And that's just amazing. I think of Leo, and he was with us at our missions conference not too long ago. And I think of others that I just see them being so faithful as students and with what their ministries are. So let me speak to that guy like me who
Hmm.
is in ministry. You know, I'm continuing, as you know, my advancing my education through Veritas Baptist College, and it's great. It calls for some discipline, but it can be done.
Yeah.
And David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, is a great one to just help you organize a little bit. But I would just say, one, if you're on the fence, jump in, and you don't have to jump in and drown yourself.
Yeah.
Just start somewhere. I met with a man in our ministry here the other day who he's enrolled. He's now a student, and I asked him. I said, "What is God doing in your life?" And he's married. He's got multiple kids. He's serving. He's busy. He really had a heart for youth, and he feels like a call of God in that direction. And I just said, "Hey, God has a prepared place for a prepared man. So
Mm,
what are you doing to prepare yourself? And don't feel like you've got to take 12 credits, 15 credits, 27. You don't have to do that.
right.
Just start with one." And then the other aspect that I love about Veritas is if you're really unsure, you can go to Truth Matters Institute and dip your toe in the shallow end,
That's
and
right.
and just kind of feel it out and see what that rhythm is like. And before you would maybe commit that far. And then I've called some pastor friends that need this in their life, and And because I have a relationship with them, I've walked them to the edge of the cliff and I said, jump off with me.
That's right.
And
That's
so
good.
we're not jumping off by yourself.
And
So
so we have two perspectives here because you, as the student who
yeah,
jumped, took the leap of faith, dove all in.
all in.
And then we, as the team, right? We on the other end who get the application, we are honored and privileged to be a part of your academic journey, to
Yeah,
be a part of what God has called each of our students to do. We are thrilled. It is our passion. It is our great opportunity to be the safe space. When you click the button, you pay the application fee, and then it shows up on our end, then we go to work. It is our pleasure to see that come through. So you take the leap of faith as the student, as the prospective student, putting together, that finances are going to be part of the decision. Time is going to be part of the decision. But like you said, just take one class, jump in. Usually you can find an 8-week class, which is, you can do anything for 8 weeks, right? So jump
right.
in, see if it's for you. Next module, maybe take 2 classes, and then get your feet wet. You don't have to jump in full to take a full load. You can do what is manageable for you. And I appreciate your speaking to that grouping who's on the fence right now. If you're on the fence, don't stay on the fence.
Yeah.
Message us. We're excited for you. We'll be ready to take your call, take your message. You've got people like Adam who'll be rooting you on the other side. He's been in your position, now continuing on. So we're so excited about that. If
Yeah,
you are
I will
watching,
attest to that the encouragement that comes from the team at Veritas, even in failure. So, certain personalities will struggle with failure, like, oh, I want everything to be perfect. And I would be one of those. Okay.
sure.
But I do appreciate the fact that, hey, it's okay to stumble and
Yeah.
we are here. You aren't by yourself and we can help structure it, guide you. You got to do the work, but but that's been so helpful. And especially from an online platform, you would think that maybe you'd be alone. You are not alone. It is very engaging with every professor.
It
It's
is
amazing,
going back to
amazing.
what Dr. Wagner talked about intentionality. It is our goal and intention to bridge the gap, to be intentional about engaging inside of our classrooms, inside of groups, and inside of our institution. So each has its own tier,
Yeah,
and each has a place for intentional engagement. And we are thrilled to hear you say that. It is super good feedback for us to hear. So
yeah.
thank you so much.
Amen. Amen.
Those of you who are watching, again, jump off the fence, jump in, message us. We're ready to take your call and to take your message. Adam, thank you so much. What a pleasure it has been today. You have been such an encouragement to all of us today. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I sure do appreciate it.
All right. And for those in the Veritas family, we will see you same time next Monday. We'll save you a seat.